Hey everyone, Mr. MC here, back with another lap guide, this time at Catalunya GP with the Red Bull Junior, which is a much more enjoyable car compared to the Demon Spawn X 2019. But to access this lap time challenge, going over to sport mode, so make sure you have menu book number 9 completed. Going over to the online time trials, and you'll see the current lap time challenge is being held. So this lap time challenge goes on over until January 1st, 2025, where we're on the Red Bull Junior on the racing hard tires, and no, you cannot tune your car. Your goal is to get within the 3% time range of the world record time when the event ends, as that is when your lap time gets counted, and hopefully you'll be able to get to 2 million credits. I will have the in-game replay accessible in the description down below if you want to check that out. But other than that, let's go ahead and get started with this lap guide. And unfortunately, we are on the GP section, which means we have to be careful about the final chicane, more specifically the curbs. So you want to be careful about hitting this curb on the left, because this curb can really unsettle your car. So you want to try not to monster truck this curb. It is possible to monster truck this curb on the right, but you have to align the car perfectly so that you drive right over it. You can exit this chicane on second or third gear. Third gear does feel a little easier, as there's less chance of you getting wheel spin, especially as you exit the chicane. So the car is a bit too snappy on you on second gear. Try third gear. But anyways, rev the absolute heck out of this car, bring yourself towards the left, and your first braking point is right after you pass this light that is on the left. You'll be using all of your braking power, and you'll be turning in before the curb on the left ends. And you'll make your way down to second gear. So going down to third gear, down to second gear for a bit more rotation. And as you're about to hit the apex, which is where the curb on the right is, you're going to go up to third gear and quickly get back on the throttle. But as you're about to hit this apex, do a quick lift off of throttle, especially if you're going over the curb, because this curb can unsettle the car. Now try to bring yourself towards the middle, and then use the curb on the right as your turning point and start to lift off of throttle. Try to stick to the right to reduce track distance, and as you're about to point towards the orange barrier on the other side of the track, that is when you should already be back at full throttle power. Bring yourself towards the left, brake before you go under the bridge, so this is right before the second sector starts. Use all of your braking power and start to turn in almost immediately. So you're going to go down to second gear for a bit more rotation. You can try to exit on third gear. Just be aware that you might get a slightly slower exit. You can use the signs on the other side of the track as your cue to be back at full throttle power. But do be careful about touching the curbs on the right, because those curbs can make your car spin out. So you want to be careful about that. Stay towards the right. And unfortunately, there's no real good braking marker over here, so I like to brake before the wall on the left ends. And you want to turn in before the curb on the right ends. And for this turn, I like to go down to first gear for a brief moment. Me being on first gear will force the car to whip around the corner, so I'll get more rotation. And once I get the rotation I need, I'll go up to second gear and start to ease on the throttle to try to straighten the car. And this is not the only corner where we'll be doing this. We'll be doing this on the hairpin in the second sector, and for the chicane at the final sector. Now use the very start of the curb on the right as your braking point. You will go down to third gear for this turn. Use all of your braking power, make your way down to third gear, and you're going to turn in just as the curb on the left is about to start. You will start to ease off of the brakes as you're turning in, so doing a bit of trail braking, and you want to be really careful getting back on the throttle. Avoid the green stuff on the left. Nice and careful getting back on the throttle to not unsettle the car. When the curb on the left ends, that is where you start to turn in and use around 25% of your braking power. You're trying to maintain your momentum for this fast right-handed turn. Avoid the green stuff on the right, avoid the curb on the right, but you can use that curb on the right as a cue to slowly get back on the throttle. Now you do want to be careful because it is possible to get back on the throttle too early, track out too wide, and end up going off track, which will invalidate your lap time. But bring yourself towards the right. You're going to use the end of the wall on the right as your next braking point. Use all of your braking power and turn in at the 50 meter board that is located on the right. You can use first gear for this turn, just beware that the car will turn in a lot more. Give the apex a kiss in the forehead, go up to second gear and slowly get back on the throttle. Now just as you make this right turn, you'll use 50% braking power for a short moment, then bring it back down to 25% braking power. You can go down to second gear for more rotation, and you can use a little bit of your throttle input to try to maintain your momentum, but you can exit on third gear to try to prevent any unnecessary wheel spin. Now this is where things get tricky. Brake and turn in before the curb on the left ends. You can go down to second gear for more rotation, but do be careful about getting back on the throttle too aggressively so that you reduce the risk of getting unnecessary wheel spin. Try to bring yourself towards the right and brake just before you go under the big sign just up above. This turn you can go down to first gear to get additional rotation. You can see me going down to first gear right there. Go up to second gear and be especially careful with your throttle input as you go through the chicane. You can exit on third gear as that will reduce the risk of getting any unnecessary wheel spin. But we'll go through this again, but this time I will not stop the video. Alright, so let's go through this again, but this time not going to stop the video. We'll start with chase cam for now. So this is to give you an idea about where I position the car, and also this is the camera perspective I use the most. So again, braking after the light on the left, going down to second gear, back up to third gear, and being nice and careful getting back on the throttle. Then lift off our throttle, trying to stay towards the right side of the track. Do be careful about getting back on the throttle too early so you don't end up going too wide. Brake before you go under the bridge, down to second gear for more rotation. You can exit on third gear to reduce the risk of getting any unnecessary wheel spin. This turn you can go down to first gear for more rotation, back up to second gear, nice and careful getting back on the throttle. Then brake when the curb on the right starts, down to third gear, nice and careful getting back on the throttle because this turn it is pretty easy to get the car unsettled. Then brake and turn in when the curb on the left ends. Nice and careful getting back on the throttle. You don't want to track out too wide and get your lap time invalidated. Brake when the wall on the right ends right here, down to first gear. You'll get a lot more rotation. Back up to second gear. Nice and careful getting back on the throttle. Then you're going to go back down to second gear for this turn. Try to stay towards the right side of the track. You can exit on third gear to get less chance of wheel spin. Down to second gear for more rotation. For the entry of the final chicane, you can enter in first gear, back up to second gear. You can even exit on third gear as that will reduce the risk of getting any unnecessary wheel spin. And then we'll go through this again one more time, but this time we will be in bumper cam. So there we go, back doing this lap again, but this time in bumper cam. And again, gonna look for the light on the left before the 100 meter board, as that is my first braking point, which is right about here. Down to second gear for more rotation, back up to third gear, little lift off our throttle right here to avoid unsettling the car. Try to stay towards the right side of the track, little lifting off our throttle right there. Gonna rev the absolute heck out of this car. Brake before you go under the bridge. So this is just before the new sector starts. Down to second gear for more rotation, back up to third gear, nice and careful getting back on the throttle. Here you're braking before the wall on the left ends. Down to first gear for a lot more rotation, but exit on second gear, nice and careful getting back on the throttle. Brake when the curb on the right starts, down to third gear, nice and careful getting back on the throttle. Again, you don't want to unsettle the car, which this spot is pretty notorious for. Little braking right here, trying to maintain your momentum, but be careful about getting back on the throttle too early. Then bring yourself towards the right, brake when the wall on the right ends, so this is where sector 3 starts. Down to first gear for more rotation. Back up to second gear, nice and careful getting back on the throttle. Down to second gear again for this right turn. You can exit on third gear to reduce the odds of getting any unnecessary wheel spin. Down to second gear for more rotation. You can enter the chicane on first gear for a lot more rotation, but exit on second or third gear. Third gear if you want less wheel spin. Take this final turn flat out, and with this I was able to just barely poke into the 144s. But that was a pretty fun lap time challenge, but it is a tricky one as well. Do be aware that this car does have some downforce, so take advantage of it. But that's all from me. If you like this video, you can press a like, subscribe, and all the good stuff. But this is Mr. CA. Have a Merry Christmas, as Christmas is just right around the corner. And I'll see you in the next video.